Welcome back, welcome back. Well, my next guest is a global superstar in every sense of the word. During more than 30 years in the music business, he's sold, wait for it, almost 100 million records, either solo or with the band with which he made his name, The Police. In between times, he's composed scores more songs, pursued an acting career, and taken up various causes, most famously trying to save the Brazilian rainforest. He is, of course, Sting. His current worldwide tour has been featuring him playing with full orchestras in a style that he calls symphonicity. I caught up with him in Sydney, Australia, where he was playing at the world-famous Sydney Opera House. Before we meet him, let's see him in action.
This will be enough umbrella, but it's always sweet and stuff getting wet. Every little thing she does is magic. Everything she do just turn me on. Even though my life before was tragic, now I know my love for her goes on. Every little thing she does is magic. Everything she do just turn me on. Even though my life before was tragic, now I know my love for her goes on.
Tell me, it's great to see you again, and if you were filling in a form which said occupation on it for passport or something like that, would you put first and foremost composer, rock star, activist? What would be the first thing?
Musician.
Musician. That would cover.
Musician is what I always wanted to make a living at, just to be a musician. I thought that was a very honourable profession. I still do. And that's what I am. Without the musician, everything else wouldn't take place. So I wouldn't compose if I wasn't a musician. I wouldn't be an activist. I wouldn't be anything. So it's music first.
Yeah, that's a very good, clear reason for all that. And and I suppose that composer is the loneliest, I suppose.
It's the one I dread.
Is it?
Facing a blank page is not my favorite thing to do. In fact, I avoid the occasion by staying on tour most of the time. But eventually I have to come home and I have to face that page and pray that something will occur to me.
Yeah.
Often it doesn't. Like fishing, you know, you sit there and you sit, and you just sit.
Yeah. And do you find that sometimes it comes to you as a surprise? I always remember Paul McCartney was saying that he woke up with Yesterday in his head and thought it must have been someone else's song, and he had to check around and found out that it somehow transferred
I've
itself.
had wonderful moments like that, but not obviously as iconic as Yesterday. But it's lovely when it happens. Maybe songs are written somewhere else, in some parallel universe, and we just sort of draw them down. I don't know.
What is the feeling that you get from an audience?
It feels unbelievably fantastic. It feels it's just like a drug. It really gets you.
Well,
wound
is
up.
it? Yeah, I often think it must be a bit like I'm not good enough swimmer to do this, but surfing almost. You're surfing on the wave of the audience's response.
It's a little bit like flying, I have to say. When I'm singing, I'm the truest to myself. I don't think about the past or the future. I just think about staying in tune and soaring, basically. And the audience is with you. So it's a bit like flying.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And and in terms of your life at the moment and your life for the last 30 years, indeed, what is this reason for the success of a marriage, or in your case, your marriage? What do you attribute it to?
I don't want to curse it. I don't want to be the poster boy and girl for, happy showbiz marriages. I'm very grateful that I have this fantastic relationship with this extraordinary woman. She's not sick of me yet, but that may have something to do with me being away so much.
That's the magic.
I mean, there's a balance there. I think without the touring, I'd go crazy. Without the marriage, I'd go crazy too. So I need that balance. And she's very strong. I feel like an orbit because she's central to my life.
What is the song you cherish most, and is it the one that the audiences cherish most, or do audiences cherish different songs in different countries?
That's true. Some audiences like other songs and prefer them to others. I would say that it's just basically one song. I'm singing the story of my life, or my creative life. And asking me to choose a song over the others is like asking me to choose one of my children over
Yeah,
the others. I
absolutely.
have 6 kids, you know.
Yeah.
They're
No, you
all, I
can't.
love them all unconditionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all have unique qualities, but I don't have to choose. That's not my job.
No. What about the audiences? Is there one song more than any other that they request?
Audiences generally like to hear what they know. That's a truism everywhere. But my job is to challenge them a little bit, to bring them things that they don't quite know and then get to know. So my job is to bring new stuff into the room and say, look at this. I know you like that, but here's something else. That's my job.
And that's the key, is to lead them into liking something new.
You know, when I go to a concert,
not just giving people what they want, but what they will grow to like.
Exactly. When I go to a concert, I want to learn something. I want to walk out having not heard something I heard before, a new way of doing something. I think audiences are the same. You know, I don't underestimate them.
Yeah. When did you first add to the range of things you were involved in and cared about a really meaningful amount of time that you were spending on activism? Was there one Damascus moment when that started?
You know, I was a school teacher before I was a rock star, and so I had a certain idea of myself as a citizen. You know, I paid tax, I voted, I had a pension plan, I had a salary and a profession. Yeah. So I didn't just go into you know, being a rock star without any of that. Yeah. So carrying on those citizens' responsibilities and those citizens' rights that you have, it just seems natural to me where you can help, to help. Yeah. Often you're given a platform to speak. You're asked a question about something serious. You have to be coherent. It's not necessary. I'm not saying that we all have to. It just seems natural to me to try and do something. But then you learn politics. Because sometimes you can say you're easily knocked down, easily caricatured. So I think you have to get political very quickly. Yeah. Know when to speak.
Yeah. And in the rainforest is of all the things you're involved in, that is the thing that is probably most familiar to people.
That's true, but I don't think you can separate any of the issues that we face as a crisis from any other. You can't separate human rights from the ecology. I think it's all really about levels of consciousness. You know, all the problems we face are about consciousness. Our environmental problem is we're basically unconscious. We burn fuel to get energy where we live in a cosmos that's full of energy. It's free. Yeah. Why? It's a low level of consciousness that burns fuel, and I'm part of that. So my whole thing about human rights and the ecology is that we have to get a higher level of understanding.
And you found Chile, I was about to do a terrible accidental pun of saying a chilling experience, but you found Chile particularly moving.
I had a long history with Chile. I went to Chile during the Pinochet years, and I met the mothers of the disappeared. And then I returned there a few years later and played in the stadium where a lot of their fathers, husbands, brothers had been murdered, and performed with these mothers. And I would say it's probably the most emotional of my life, most emotional occasion when I was on stage, having that reality brought home to me. You know, how intense that must have been.
Yes, because someone told me that when they went to the stadium, whatever, that on the walls in the internal part of the building, the blood stains were still there.
It was still there. This is in Vina del Mar.
It was absolutely horrendous, that, wasn't it? Absolutely horrendous. But of all the causes, I mean, there are so many now, aren't there, as you say? I mean, there's so many needs, there's so many plangent needs that people have, don't they?
They are connected, though.
They are, almost all of them, you think?
I would say so. I would say they're connected.
And what about all forms of music that you participate in? They're all intimately connected, are they?
Well, I'm led by my curiosity. You know, I'm still a student of music. I like to learn something new all the time. I don't necessarily take the categorization of music terribly seriously. I mean, I can't play Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto. But the basic building blocks that my music and that music is made from are the same. And so it's lovely to play with a symphony orchestra and to try and bring the barriers down. I think it's not like the old days, you know, when people would look down their nose at pop musicians and say, oh, I can't play this music.
Quite the reverse. And what you're doing here with the symphonic orchestras is a special form of music too, isn't it? I mean, have you done that before this last world tour?
You know, I've worked with orchestras occasionally on the Grammys or on the Oscars, just a sort of one-off. I've never actually put a program of a whole evening together. Luckily, the songs themselves have enough harmonic movement within them to warrant a symphony orchestra playing them. So, and also I've stolen a lot of classical music anyway. I've stolen from the best, as we do. I've stolen from Bach and Prokofiev and Mussorgsky. So that's easy to do. Not difficult.
Not difficult.
No.
So are there, in addition to the causes you would like to advance and so on, what are the things you haven't done yet that you want to do in your life?
You know, I want to get better as a musician.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the future of music. I think, you know, there's a crisis in music. We're not sure how to advance. We're not sure where it's going. It's a big wall. And so I'm very curious about what's on the other side of it. I'm not sure how to get around it or under it or, you know, over
around
it.
the other side of it. Yeah.
There's something there. There's something happening.
Do you think, are you someone who feels there's a God there?
What am I? I'm probably a deist. Yeah, I believe in some intelligence out there, but you know, over a massive cosmic period, I'm not sure I believe in. I'm not a religious person. I don't belong to a religion, but I have an idea of something beyond our understanding. That's all I could say.
I remember I was once interviewing Isaac Asimov, who's an atheist, and I was saying, but he'd be saying he didn't believe in God. And I said, yes, but is there a force that we don't know about? And he said, well, there may be, but if there is, we don't know about it, which was the perfect reply to an ineptly phrased question. But so that you don't worry too much about the afterlife and things like that.
I think this life is fascinating enough. I think what we know of the cosmos is incredibly fascinating. But I don't know. I think, you know, the word agnostic means I don't know.
Yeah,
I would say I'm agnostic.
It may be or maybe not, yes.
I haven't a clue.
There's a man who said famously, I'm an atheist, thank God, which was a perfect one. So what is your main ambition for your 6 children?
If I've ever given them a piece of advice, it was to find a job like mine, where they would do it for no money. They do it because they love it. If they want to play music, they do it because music has its own reward, its own value, not to become famous, not to become wealthy. And they would say, well, you know, it's okay for you, Dad, you've done both of those things. I say, no, but the truth is, despite that, the truth is, music is its own reward. Look for that, or art, acting. Whatever you do, do it for love.
And Harper's Bazaar had a tribute to you both here. You probably remember this quote. Styler's legs look like those of a 20-year-old rockette, true and lovely, and while Sting's toned, wasn't it? Yes. Sting's toned torso is giving off a little bit of Baryshnikov. That's a pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Double act, isn't it?
I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Can't do better than that.
Thank
It's a delight to have this chance to talk to.
Thank you.
The Gaddafi regime's refusal to budge in the face of street protests and its remorseless killing of an estimated 1,000 unarmed Libyans has led to huge dismay abroad, not least in Libya's former colonial master, Italy, which fears a massive influx of refugees. Italy's President Berlusconi has long been a close friend and ally of Gaddafi, and he is desperately trying at the moment to adapt to this new and uncertain situation. The former European Commissioner and leading opposition senator, Emma Bonino, has a particular interest in the current unrest in Libya and beyond. She's a board member of the Africa Democracy Foundation, and I'm glad to say she joins us again right now from Rome. Welcome, welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you for saying yes, too. Tell me, we were just talking there about influx of up to 300,000 people from Libya into Italy. Could Italy cope with that? Would it be prepared to cope with it? Would it have to cope with it?
I think that first of all, the figures nobody knows, and I think they are also exaggerated for domestic consumption. They are trying to divert the attention from our responsibility to this sort of threat, which is always possible. I do remember that in '99 we had 1 million displaced from Kosovo to Albania in 1 week in the Great Lakes. So every crisis normally brings with it an influx of displaced refugees, displaced asylum seekers, and so on and so forth. But definitely I think they are using it as a threat for domestic consumption. Definitely there will be a sort of refugees coming, but I think Italy must be prepared to cope with them, and their call for European solidarity, well, they didn't show, we in Italy didn't show so much solidarity to Germany when they received hundreds of thousands of people from Eastern European, so I don't think it will work, but definitely Italy has to be prepared. It's a historical responsibility, it's a sign of humanity, and it's our moral duty.
And what about this close relationship and so on, suspicious relationship, some would say, but close relationship between Berlusconi and Gaddafi? How much of that is an embarrassment, shall we say, to Italy? Wishing it hadn't happened, you know?
Well, it was much more than that. You know, this close relation with Gaddafi is enthusiastically bipartisan. Also, the opposition and Foreign Minister D'Alema and the strategic treaty of partnership and whatsoever was enthusiastically ratified, with some exception, in Parliament 2 years ago. So let's say, then of course Berlusconi, as usual, doesn't have a sense of let's say, decency, and so the question is that all the visit of Gaddafi were a total show. It doesn't have the sense of the limit and institutional decency. But in the substance, this agreement, and particularly the Article 4, the question of immigrants and so on and so forth, anyhow, that was enthusiastically approved, bipartisan, with the opposition involved. That's why the embarrassment is, well, you can feel it, but not only from Berlusconi.
And they say that, in fact, the figure in top trading partner to Libya is Italy, 17 billion a year, they say. Is that level of trade under threat today?
Well, but I think that these figures is definitely exaggerated. The last figure I saw for 2010 was more or less 7 billion. But definitely there is a lot of interest in from the Gaddafi family in Italy, in Eni, in Fiat, in Juventus, in whatsoever. There is, but I must say that there is also a lot of interest with the French, and not to forget English and UK. Tony Blair was a consultant of the Libyan Sovereign Fund. So let's say the interest, the Libyan interest in Europe are go very, very deep, and in Italy also because of gas and oil. But I think it's widespread.
But Colonel Gaddafi says he is, quote, going nowhere, unquote. Do you think in a few months' time he will still be ruling in Libya? Will he survive this?
Well, I hope not, on behalf of the Libyan people, because we in the West, when we were looking at Gaddafi, we're only looking at, let's say, massacres with non-Libyans. So we always remember Lockerbie, or we rightly remember the bombing of the French airplane in Niger. But we must remember that he was a terrible guy against his own people. People tend to forget that in the Abu Salim, 1,000 prisoners were shot back in the 90s. So I hope, on behalf of the Libyan people, that he will not be in charge of the country. Exactly how it has been in the past year, that is totally unacceptable. And what he's doing now is waging war against his own people. And I think an international inquiry has to be decided immediately, because it's important to take note and to take stock. I think there are elements of crimes against humanity.
And of course, at the moment, Berlusconi is himself under siege in terms of the law being after him, and in fact the trial that's due to come up accusing him of paying for underage sex and so on. In that particular situation, do you think Berlusconi has no hope in such a trial, or does the fact that there are 3 women there make it tougher for him or easier for him in this trial, or will he still somehow pull the strings himself?
What I do hope is that he will go and defend himself, if possible, in front of the judges. But there are other possibilities that I think they will exploit. For instance, postponing the trials for institutional commitments, or many other issues that are legal under our law. But on behalf of all of us, I hope, on the contrary, that he would go in front of the judges and prove to be innocent, I hope. But for all of us, of course, could be better if he could prove himself innocent. And this is what I think he should do.
And in fact, do you think he would ever step down voluntarily or step down under pressure, or is that something that he would find repugnant?
No, I don't think that he will step down under pressure. And the weakness in Italy is that, first of all, the democratic institutions are so weak, and so since a long, long time. I think that Berlusconi is the result of a system that has become weaker and weaker, and will finally find an alternative, because the weakness of this situation is this: even if people who, let's say, voted for Berlusconi but are strongly disillusioned now, the question is, okay, but who else? What is the opposition proposing? And in fact, this is the weakness of the situation and of the system. And the weakness is that my country is totally paralyzed. We have a bad government, the opposition is totally fragmented, and the institutions have been totally emptied from the inside. The parliament is a parliament of people who are nominated and not elected. The judiciary is sometimes politicized. And so I think we are really in a crisis of a democratic system. And that began, well, tens of years ago.
Well, Emma, thank you very much for that update on the situation in Italy. We really thank you for being with us, and we hope to welcome you back very soon.
Thank you so much.